You're watching France24. It's time now for our daily look at the international press. Helen Papper joins me in the studio. Good morning again,
Good morning.
Helen. Burma, let's start with that, of course, truly now a global story, but the world is seeming rather slow to act. What does the papers make of it?
Well, the papers are talking about it, and there's a lot of opinion pieces, editorial pieces. The Guardian has a moving picture on its front page of protesters scattering right after being hit by tear gas. It's actually a picture that's being taken up in a lot of different newspapers, including the International Herald Tribune. There's an interesting editorial by Timothy Garton-Ash to answer your question that basically there is very little that the U.S. and the EU can do. At least that's his opinion. And so while there is a debate spurring up about whether the UN and the U.S. are going to impose harsher sanctions and whether that's a good thing or not, he's saying that whether they do or not, it's going to have very little influence on what's happening. He says that basically Burma's neighbors, India and China, can really do something. They're the only ones who have that power. For China, for instance, it certainly doesn't want a bloodbath threatening its business interests there and spoiling the run-up to the Beijing Olympics. And so China does have the power to intervene. India is also seemingly very concerned about competing for influence, and so Burma's rulers have been able to play India off against China and vice versa. So that's an interesting development that we're going to see there. China hasn't talked too much yet about what's going on. India, in the papers, there are editorial pieces in the Indian papers saying that it's time for Indians to support the monks outwardly. In The Independent, there is a front page, very striking and moving picture, and as well as a capture of witnessing and of someone talking about soldiers beating monks and seeing truck full of police with guns. So that's very gripping, and it's quite a contrast to an interview that's being done in Libération with Gabriel Defer, who can now no longer speak. But when he spoke to Libération, he said that there is no revolution in the streets and that everybody's a bit overreacting, that there aren't that many police forces. He talked about 20 policemen yesterday. So we're not exactly sure yet what is exactly going on. There's an interesting article in the Arab paper, Al-Quds Al-Arabi. They're the only paper to cover the event in a bit of an editorial way. The director of the paper himself talks about it, where he commends the monks' bravery. He says that Arab religious figures should follow suit and do the same thing. In any case, what's happening in Burma is raising hordes of concerns for political freedom, and I'm sure we're going to be following that.
Okay, and you were promising us something from El País, Helen. Tell us about that.
Very quickly, in El País, since yesterday, they've started a file called the Crawford Papers, and they're revealing information about what happened in terms of discussions between the Spanish President Aznar and George W. Bush right before the Iraq War started in 2003. They're saying that the Spanish president lied to the Spanish people, that he was giving them information about nuclear disarmament, about nuclear weapons, and that he knew from George Bush that there was no such presence there, and that he manipulated the information to try to manipulate people into following him into this Iraq war. And so it's a series of revelations, and I think it's going to be ongoing for quite a while.
So the Crawford Papers then, it could be a President Bush Whitewater type thing. Crawford, of course, is his ranch in the United States, where he tends to hang out with his world leader friends. Thank you very much indeed, Helen Papper, for that press review. Stay tuned to France 24.